I first saw this video 1 week ago on April the 8th. I instantly realized it looked like a plane from the flashing lights and quickly figured out that bokeh was the best explanation for the triangular lights.
Bokeh? What the hell's bokeh?
The first one I have to point out is this night vision footage of these pyramid shapes in the sky, which, again, anybody with some experience with a camera can tell you about the bokeh effect, in which a point of light that's out of focus can take the shape of the iris in the camera. If you have a hexagonal iris, you get hexagonal blurs. You see these all the time. If you have a special star-shaped iris on a lens, you get stars. If you have a heart-shaped iris, you get hearts. And if you have a night vision camera with a triangular-shaped iris, you get triangles. And when that triangle just happens to blink in the exact same cadence as the navigation lights on a 747, then you may have just captured evidence that the Earth is being invaded by JetBlue.
Why, Joe? Why, Joe? Oh, I loved you, man. This is my hero. This is my hero. I'm back. I think Mick West and Joe Scott were right about bokeh, at least. And so I decided to do my own experiment. Mick West did his own with the triangle tape over the lens. So I figured I would do my own experiment and see if I can get similar results. So let's see what I got. I've set up a special lens to mirror Mick West. You know, remember he had a triangle cut right here. I've never heard of that, but I decided to even one-up him, completely covered with tape. And now I got a pretty interesting result, actually, so check it out. Can't help it, guys. So obviously a joke. I think bokeh is a factor in this. I think Mick West is right in some ways, but not everything, okay? This is not definitively proven as an airliner. And the reason I didn't bring it up in my initial assessment is it didn't look like an airliner to me. Mick West's argument, picked up by my hero, ex-hero, Joe Scott, I think he's still good, but a little more work, Joe, a little more work, is it looks like an airliner, it flashes like an airliner, so it must be an airliner. And my response is, A, it doesn't look like an airliner. I'll show you examples. B, it doesn't flash like an airliner. And C, if this was an airline route, where are the other airplanes flashing? And how come number 2 and 3 don't flash? Look how a plane flashes. Strobe lights flash like that. That's how they strobe. That's how they flash. Pilots all know this, and they're super annoyingly bright. So on the ground, actually, when we're taxiing around on the ground, if you're stopped, you will turn your strobe off because it will literally blind everybody around. And if you have a night vision goggles on the ground and a strobe goes off anywhere, or if you have your strobe on, you will see that strobe. You will see the strobe basically going off if there's any moisture in the air. So this strobe, it's bright white. It's super non-compatible with the MBGs, and this thing will show up dog balls, as we say. We can actually change the settings on our strobe, okay? So that's how we count, right? There's many airplanes out there. If I have 4 airplanes, as the flight lead, I'll set my strobe to a non-one blinking thing. So it'll be like pink, 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 pink. And then I'll set number 2 to do 2 strobes, pink, 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 pink. And then number 3 to 3, pink, 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 pink. And then number 4, pink, 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 pink. When I tried to apply that to the pyramid video, I couldn't come up with anything, to be honest. First off, it doesn't even look like a distant airliner. So let's look at that. What does a distant airliner actually look like? So he's focused to infinity, okay? So what does that mean here? The stars are in focus, not quite though, okay? If you zoom in, then this is going to show what I was mentioning is that the bokeh effect, okay? Which is cool, yeah, it makes sense. I never basically put 2 and 2 together because for us, it doesn't affect our operations, okay? We don't come up with these issues like, oh, what is that? Is that an aircraft or a flying triangle? You know, it just hasn't come up. So what I want to point out here is that everything's basically in relative focus, okay? Slightly out, okay? You can see the stars here. You could tighten that up a little bit, okay? Tons of information. There's stars everywhere. Okay, here's a planet, okay? That's what a planet looks like, okay? And now here's where we get a plane. Boom. You see that strobe? That strobe is just so easy to see. It's white, it's non-compatible, and it's just going to show up like crazy. Let's watch it. Pink, pink, 1, 2, 1, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi. That's what a plane looks like. It's consistent. Pink, 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 pink. Hypocenter 101 made some pretty good videos, but it doesn't include all the information again. Okay, so look, this is an airplane. I want you to look at how the flashes are. Okay, so watch what it looks like. Pink.
With focus.
I mean, basically, there's a bright, super bright flash.
Point.
But even when he unfocuses, okay, you still see this bright
Focused.
light. There again.
Angular.
There again. So you will see a bright light emanating. That's an airplane, right? I just want to show you can't make out anything else around because this thing is so out of focus. This is a drone out. So again, and you see this, here's bokeh. See this bokeh that's going with the flash? I think this is what actually we're seeing from those other two triangles that Mick is talking about as stars. So again, you can't make anything else out, right? Here's the horizon. This is a boat. I believe this is a boat. He's going to unfocus it. And you're going to see what can we actually make out of the background, okay? Okay, so we get a triangle here. This one's gone, okay? So immediately, we can't make anything else out. Okay, as soon as he gets to this triangle now, this light, which was basically almost the same. So there's these two lights, and then this third light over here. These are boats. You can't see any of the stars, okay? Look, boom, goes out. This is all just noise. There's no stars in the picture. So if we look at the flashing, let's look at that. Okay, so I went through and frame by frame, if you look here, and I wrote down when it flashed, okay? And I'm looking specifically for the strobe lights. So that bright, non-compatible flashing light that we should be able to see easily, and it should always come out, okay? So there's it, there's one, for example, at 7:05. This is frames, actually. So this is number of frames, which you convert. It's 30 frames per second, so it goes to 7.17 seconds is what I'm referring it to. So we continue on. We get to the next flash, should be right here. There we go. Okay, and I wrote it down 8:57. That's 8.57 seconds, okay, as reference. And we go to the next one, okay, and I did another flash, okay, 10.33, and I was like, man, there is a pattern, okay? There's some other little minor flashes, which Mick says is like the wings, etc. Okay, so this is the basic flashes I got. Okay, so I went through frame by frame, counted each one of these, what I can consider a possible strobe flash, and this is what I ended up with. I made Excel. I tried to track it in Excel, okay, to try and break out. So if you go these are the times here per second, so 5.67 seconds, it flashes, and then this equals the subtract, okay? So there's 1.5 in between these two numbers, okay? So 1.5, 1.4, 1.76, then back to 1.24. So from what I could tell, the best, solid number I could come up with was 1.4. Looks around like the average. 1.4 to 1.5 seconds is going to be like in between, but it's not uniform from what I can tell based off of the video. And 1.4 seconds, I've never heard of 1.4 seconds. Okay, is this legal? So 1.4 seconds, could that be an ICAO actual flash pattern? Let's look. Aircraft flashing light synchronization. So ICAO aircraft have to adhere to a certain flashing light synchronization. Normally it's every 1 second. You see this bright strobe flash every 1 second. But according to ICAO rules, it has to be no less than 40 flashes per minute and no more than 100 flashes per minute. 60 divided by every 1.4 seconds, we get 42 flashes per second. So based off of what I counted, 1.4 seconds, it's legally, from what I could find, it could possibly be the flash pattern of an airliner. Could it be? Is it legal? Yeah. You guys are clever, man. You clever guys. And it's not uniform. Okay, so let me show you again what I'm expecting a normal airliner. I mean, that is a normal. That's what an airliner looks like to me. It's more like bink, 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 bink. Mick West conveniently leaves out any mention of the stanchion. In his examples of the airplane from Hypocenter 101, we see that it has to be greatly out of focus to give this image of this like triangle that's actually 12 miles away is what Mick West is arguing as an airliner, but now it appears much closer because somehow this light is just so bright and aimed at the camera that even though the stanchion is in relative focus, even though the clouds are in relative focus and the stars from previous are in relative focus, somehow this is completely out of focus and giving this super bright triangle from this little tiny pinpoint of light out of 12 nautical miles. Look how bright the strobes are compared to everything else. Look how bright this strobe is. Boom. I mean, it flashes on the whole screen. I mean, that is an obvious strobe pattern to me. That is obvious strobe, okay? Boom. You see that bright strobe? Bright strobe, okay? Even totally out of focus, okay? Even out of focus. You're gonna get a bright strobe pattern. I mean, almost like goes on the whole screen. And you'll see it later, he has another issue here. Watch this strobe, watch how it hits. I mean, it even creates these other secondary bokeh effects. You see? I mean, this is a bright strobe, a bright strobe. So, I mean, that's what a strobe looks like. It doesn't look like what we're seeing in this. I mean, look at this. To me, it doesn't match the flashing pattern, and it doesn't look like the other videos we've looked at. Plus, everything would have to be completely out of focus from the examples I've seen from Hypocenter 101. So, flashes, yes, it is flashing. Does it look exactly like a plane, a definitive answer? No. Second point, what are these other lights?
Dylan DTV on Twitter discovered that this was actually Jupiter, Antares, and some other stars. We can use the free software Stellarium, enter the location and the time, and then look towards Jupiter, a planet, not a star, and it is a perfect fit for around 9:10 Pacific time in that location.
And we're looking at this busy airline route. Then what are the other two lights in the sky? And my other question is, where are the other airliners? Okay, so if you can obviously see this airliner at 12 nautical miles so plainly through the clouds, from a boat on what appears to be a relatively low illumination night, where are the other airliners? We don't see them. But we do see these other lights in the sky, right? But what's key about these other lights in the sky? What's the big point that Mick kind of glosses over in his first video and then comes back to in his second video? The big point is these things are not flashing. Okay, so if Mick's hypothesis is correct and that what the video is of airliners, and this is an airline corridor, then the question is, why aren't these flashing brightly? We would see these immediately if these are flashing airliners, like I just showed in the other video. Okay, so this is glossed over in his first video, which I love this example. Smart, man. You got some smart astronomy and photography people on your team there, Mick. This, okay, is awesome. So they say that these are planets. Okay, so they're able to star chart this thing using this Stellarium application. Okay, I tried to download, tried to figure it out. But they say that mapped in, so if they put in the basic coordinates of where the Russel is, and then using the software, they can determine that this is exactly what the sky looked like at that time, okay? At 9:10 p.m., okay? So if you type in 9:10 p.m., which is important, this is what you're gonna get, okay? And the planets are in line, okay? So be advised, so for this, they're saying that these are planets, this is Jupiter and this is Antares. These will move. So in an hour, this is not going to be the same position. Okay, probably in 15 minutes, it's not going to be the exact same position. So they had to find the exact correct time to cycle through, type in all these different times to get to 9:10 p.m. And I say they were pretty lucky that it was evening towards the night. Okay, but not lucky enough. Okay, because again, I can tell you guys have never used night vision devices. Okay, so I bet Hypocenter could tell you that if you try and go and turn on your MVGs or turn on your night vision devices within an hour of civil twilight, it's going to be bright as hell. Okay, you can't turn anything on. We can't schedule our night flights within an hour of civil twilight because as soon as you get up there, as soon as you try and put on your night vision goggles, guess what happened? You're blanked out. There's still too much light in the environment. But if you're pointed at all towards the west, at all, if this initial picture right here is pointed towards the west, you're not going to see anything when the sun's setting. I mean, this thing is going to blanked out. It will look like a giant, bright sunset towards the west. And you're not going to be able to see stars for sure, 100%. Maybe these planets, but you ain't going to see stars. Okay, so that's number one is, good try everybody, but 9:10 p.m., that close to civil twilight, which in July in San Diego ends at 8:32, I believe. Less than an hour after civil twilight, it's going to be bright as hell. You're not going to be able to make out stars. Okay, so that's first thing. Second thing is you can see physical line of sight in the video. Okay, I pointed that out in my assessment. The line of sight means that these two objects here move in relation to the background. Okay, so that's, again, with night vision goggles, right, we don't have good assessment of range, so you have to determine other ways of range. One major thing is if it's closer, it's going to move faster, right, in the field of view. So in this case, what I did is I zoomed in, okay, and I went in as close as I could, and I drew a line right from this point, okay, not center of mass, okay, but this doesn't really change, to right at the very lowest apex of this. And you look here, it's basically a square, okay, which is what I'm used to in normal MEGs. The stars kind of look like a square. But as soon as you go out more than that, now it separates and you can't make it out. Okay, so in order to see this star, it has to be in some sort of focus. Like we can't just focus on the stanchion and then expect to see anything in the stars, especially at 9:10 p.m. So here we go. I drew this, and now I'm going to step through frame by frame, and I'm going to show you that the relationship between this object and this star changes. Okay, here we go. We start here, right at the end. Watch. Boom. Moves there. We go here. Look. So the same line is now in the center of mass. Okay, it started here. Now it's in the center of mass. And it doesn't go away. Okay, from what we can tell later on, we can tell anything. Okay, kind of hard to see there, but zoomed in so you can see. Look, we can track movement. I can show you that these move. You can measure it. Okay, so if we zoom out, so these two move. These two move in relation to these. Okay, gets closer to this. So what I see is these moving in relation to each other. I see line of sight from them and their backgrounds. That's what I analyzed at the beginning. But I drew a line in between them. So if you look here, they don't. In relation to each other, they stay the same. But in relation to the other ones, they change. You see? I mean, it's slight, but to me, that's line of sight. I mean, I can see them moving. Okay, so you guys can, maybe the camera, you can come up with some more magical tricks, how the lens is diffracting the light. Honestly, I mean, it could be possible. At 9:10 p.m., are you going to be able to get this level of detail and somehow that's a planet that appears to have line of sight? Maybe, Do I think it's the case? No. If I thought it was the case, I would have said, this looks like planets. And I did. I had to check, right? But when I checked in my initial assessment, I saw line of sight. So I saw them move. If these things are moving in relation to each other and not in relation to the background, then it means that they have to be close. They would have to be airplanes or, as described, as these three unknown aerial vehicles. They would have to be part of that. So that's the argument. Since they're not flashing, this tells me immediately that they are not airliners. Immediately. And that's why Mick had to come up with this complicated planet star matching thing to the stars. Okay, and so the final thing, let's watch. I love this final thing of the star. I actually thought his last 2 points were correct, but
it's a bit brighter, but otherwise not super distinctive, so hard to find. I realized though that the camera did not move very far, and we could roughly track the motion.
So he moves the camera there, right? Look how far he moves
the clouds after boosting the contrast. So I tracked from the initial position looking towards
There,
Jupiter,
and it keeps
past the
going,
single
and it
star,
keeps going
which is
to there. Okay, look at this. Look how far this is. That's like 4 fields of view. When we look at the actual video, watch how far this moves, okay? Okay, 1 field of view. Look at the cloud. Look at the center cloud here. Okay, it's basically out. So we have 1 field of view. The UAP, right? Maybe 1 field of view. It's not gonna be like 4 fields of view. I thought for a minute he was correct on the stars actually, but if you look closer now, so these stars I believe they could be stars in the background, it's possible. More likely I think that they are, like what I said at the beginning, some sort of reflected light off of this. If you look, basically when do they start? It starts right when we start zooming, So look, when he puts the camera, or however you want to think, if he pushes the actual lens up even closer, that could be it. But it's basically right when he starts pushing the lens forward or zooming is when we make these things out. And you notice it kind of pauses here. I don't really see any more movement, and then it picks up. Could it be stars in the background? Maybe. I think more likely it's just those weird refractive images that we've seen like this, where you just get these weird bokeh effects. I think that's more likely. Could be stars, but it's definitely not those stars way off. I think bokeh is a factor. If I took that into account, I think it would change my assessment. So based off of this, what do I think? Is it an airliner? Maybe, but it's not an airliner out at long range, okay? I think it's more likely a drone that's up close that would be flashing. As far as the planets, is it Jupiter that we're looking at? I don't think so. I think your time window for that to be possible is so short, and at 9:10 p.m. I don't think it's going to be possible, but we can check it, right? So I think everything hinges around that. So the question is, when was this video taken? If it wasn't taken at 9:10 p.m., if it was taken any other time, then I think that rules out the whole planet argument, and then that means that we're not looking at airliners, because if we were, we would undoubtedly see that strobe light flashing from many, many miles away. So in that case, if it's not taken at 9:10 p.m., it's later in the night, which I think it is based on the environmentals, then that's not a factor. And I think we have to consider that this is something else. In that case, what is its shape? Do we know? I would say we don't know. I think they're right. They showed that if it is a UAP, I think it's probably not triangle or pyramid shapes. It's probably circular shaped, or we don't know actually the shape. But if it is at 700 feet, based on my calculations, so 700 feet gives you a hypotenuse of about 1,200 feet. And based off of that, my previous example, I think this thing is about 18 feet across, or at least no bigger than 20 feet, approximately, if it's at 700 feet AGL. So that's what I would say. If it is a UAP, if it's not an airliner, if it's not a drone, as has been reasonably argued by Mick West, probably not pyramid shaped, it's probably in a ball, probably one of those cube orbs or different shaped UAP. I do have to give props to you camera guys out there and astronomy nerds. You guys are pretty smart. Came up with some smart stuff. Is it correct? Maybe. You got to jump through a lot of hoops. Okay, so all these little things that you said, it could be out of focus, but it's not. But why is the rest of it in focus? It could be this flashing thing, but it's not at a second. The strobe is not at a normal airline speed. Could be an airline route, except there's no other airliners there. Flash pattern's weird. Well, these could be planets. Except only at that exact moment in time. We check any other time, and it's not going to be planets. Okay, it's going to have to be something closer. And if it is something closer, then I'm curious how that would be explained by the debunkers. The assumptions, I will be clear in my future videos. I actually took it out of my 40-minute video. I thought it was too long to explain that I was looking this without looking at other information prior. In the future, I will look at other information. The bokeh stuff, thank you. I learned about that, and I'll put it in my bag of tricks. I think we will get to the truth sooner or later. I'm really excited about this report coming out on Friday. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you next week. Peace.